Yes, good evening and welcome to another episode of Roots Connections on Q. I am Simone Mathieu, and while we are waiting to connect to Q95, I thought I would come on and spend a couple of minutes just interacting with you as we come on live on Q95 radio station. And I just want to check to make sure that we are live on Facebook Live. So come on in. Remember to tag someone. Remember to say where you're joining us from. And remember to share the live. So share the live. Let us know where you're joining us from. We have a wonderful program for you this evening. We have quite a number of guests who are here with us to share their experience in the space of education, in the field of education. And I can see that we are live. So we are live on Facebook. And I'm going to grab the link so we can share. So come on in, check in, let me know where you're joining us from. Let me know any challenges that you faced with education, with technology during the time of COVID-19. So that is what we are here to talk about this evening. We're going to talk about technology in education and if it is time to reshape education, if it is time to reimagine education. So check in, come on in, let us know where you are joining us from, and let me check to see if Q95 is ready for us. No, they're not quite ready, so we will keep chatting and we will keep on having this conversation until we get the thumbs up from Q95 that they're ready to go and that we are live. So come on in, check in, let us know where you are joining us from. And we have a number of guests on the program with us this evening. So they're looking forward to sharing their stories with you and letting you know of their own experiences with COVID-19 technology and the
Students
like.
explore new emerging
So
opportunities in education and training to advance jobs and careers. Mr. Herman Williams, founder of Academic School of Learning, Portsmouth, Dominica, and Dr. Dion George, lecturer of political science at a U.S. university. They will tell us how technology is changing the way we train and learn and what we need to know in order to benefit from these changes. Is it time to rethink education in Dominica? Is technology permanently changing education? Join the conversation as we reimagine education on Roots Connections on Q with your host, Dr. Simone Mathieu, tapping into our Dominican experts at home and abroad as we help inspire and keep hope alive. Wednesday, 23rd June, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., and every other Wednesday night only on Q95.
The big station.
yes, so Dominica, the Caribbean region, the world. Welcome, good evening, and welcome to Roots Connections on Q, right here on the big station, Q95. This is episode number 4 for today, June 23rd, 2021. And I am Simone Mathieu, and we are back. We are back to talk about economic opportunities. We are back to talk about financial independence, and we're back to talk about advancing the lives of our Dominicans in Dominica as well as abroad. So it is wonderful to be back on your radio as we explore the question, is it time to reimagine and rethink education? Our guests tonight out of Dominica, Dr. Barry Casimir, Dr. Tasha Casimir, Mr. Herman Williams, and joining us from Atlanta, Georgia, we have Dr. Dion George, and they will introduce themselves further in a minute. But before they do, let me say a special good evening to our listeners in Dominica, the region, and the wider world. Whether you're joining us via the radio, you're joining us via Q95DA.com, or you're watching us on Facebook via Push Past 10, and of course via Wise FM, Wise QFM on Facebook Live. So, Mr. Sherwin Norris, of course, we thank you for making sure that we're connected no matter where in the world we are. And please note, I just emailed you the link so you can share it on Facebook, so you too can be live on Facebook with us. So it is great to be here. We want to thank Mr. G, of course, Q95 family, for providing this platform where we can come together to discuss important topics and important issues. And we cannot forget to thank Lambi. He's on the console and he will be taking your calls this evening. So at about the 8:25 hour, we will ask him to remind us of the phone numbers, and so you will be able to call and make your contribution. And again, thank you, Sherwin, for your tireless efforts of ensuring that we're connected to Q95 radio, no matter where in the world we currently live. So again, welcome to Roots Connections on Q. I am your host, Simone Mathieu. And with every episode of this program, the idea is to explore concrete and practical information that we can take away and we can apply to our lives. So our focus really is on the areas we can control. As we talked about last week, you know, in everything that we discuss, there are always going to be national policies that would help with the implementation of what we're trying to do. But of course, where these national policies are not forthcoming, we have to get up. We have to figure out how we are going to create economic opportunities for our Dominican brothers and sisters at home and abroad. So that is exactly what our goal is to do with this program. So we're talking about earning a living. We're talking about being able to create and earn a living for yourself. And so we will continue to share practical information on all of these topics. So tonight is no exception. We are here, we have our questions ready. We are talking about, you know, if it is time to reimagine education. We're talking about whether training, additional training and education would help us to advance our careers, to help us to find better jobs. We are talking about opportunities for low-income students, how they can have access to higher education so they too can benefit their life. And all importantly, we're talking about the impact of COVID-19 and how it just, in a nutshell, forced us to embrace technology, whether it was in school, whether it was our own training programs for work, or whether it was in our own jobs. So we're talking about the impact of technology, where we saw the success of technology, as well as where we saw the downfall. So we have a packed program for you. So again, we encourage you to join us on Facebook Live at Push Past 10, PUSHPAST, the number 10 on Facebook, or Wise QFM on Facebook. So let us go ahead and have our guests introduce themselves as they tell us their Dominican roots, where they're connected to Dominica, and they also tell us about their values, the values that they learned growing up in Dominica. So we will go ahead and get started with Dr. Barry Casimir.
Well, good evening to Dominica. My name is Dr. Barry Casimir, and I'm from Colio. I grew up with my grandmother, and one of the key things that she always taught me is to be ethical and to treat people with respect. And those key values have actually helped me throughout my entire life and my career. I am the program officer at the University of the West Indies. I'm also the treasurer of the Dominica Olympic Committee. So I am heavily involved in sports as well as education. I'm married with 4 children.
Yes, excellent. And we will go ahead and have Mr. Herman Williams introduce yourself as well. Are you muted?
Greetings to all. My name is Mr. Herman Williams. I live in Portsmouth for some time, but I'm actually from Bonn, just 5 minutes away. I'm the director of Academic School of Learning. Definitely try to bring technology into learning at a new tertiary institution. And I'm married, have one child, actually, trying to see if in case I could make her come like me. So.
Yes, and some of the values you learned while you were growing up?
Values, oh sure. I mean, giving up is not an option. That is one thing I will always carry with me. We grew up in a real tough situation. Everyone grew up from some real humble beginnings, and achieving as much as you have presently. I mean, that is something to just cherish. So these type of values, I mean, you can only carry it on to somebody else, let them know how strong you should be in personality, etc., to get to where you want to become. To get to where you
Yes.
want to be.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And the man who's doing double duty for Q95 this evening, Dr. Dion George. I enjoyed the program last night on Global View. Thank you for your contribution to that program, and thank you for being here this evening with us. So just introduce yourself and tell us some values you learned while growing up in Dominica. You're muted.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Simone Mathieu. Pleasant good evening to my other panelists. Good evening, Lambe. Good evening to the listening public. Thank God for this opportunity to sharing with us. As you said, my name is Dr. Dion George. I'm a lecturer of political science in the University System of Georgia. Also an adjunct professor at the Military College. And I'm also the director of religious education at Christ Our Hope Catholic Church. In terms of values and the persons who have influenced me, undoubtedly, I would say that my father is key. Well, both my parents, and I'll tell you why. My father was a former defense force and a farmer, and he instilled in me hard work. He was a very generous person, very cheerful. He came from Monjon, and then he lived in Salisbury. And I can never forget, well, he has passed away now, but I recall very well one of my friends in Salisbury, Hesso Vidal, or Hesso Smith. Hesso told me one time, if I could be half the person my father is, I would have succeeded and I would be a great man. But there's another man named Stephen Vidal who told me that my father was such a humble man that my father would want me to surpass him. But I pray that his soul rest in peace. But also, who instilled value in myself is my mother, Miss Margaret George, who lives with me. And she has taught me faith, a lot of faith, that I should never give up, no matter how hard things are. Uh, Another person who I can say still value in me is my Uncle Penrice. He's very resolved, very, very resolved, and very strong-headed. And he's very content with what he has. And so I can see myself in those people I've mentioned. But I must mention my grandmother as well, Elma Casimir, that when I was a young boy growing up, I used to go to the garden with her, and we would sing and work in the rain, and ants would bite me, and it was just both of us. And during the week, I would always go to Church River in the what they call tit mass in the early mornings. And that has stayed with me all my life. Even now as an adult, I still go to tit mass in the morning. And of course, I cannot forget Father Celsus Auguste, who has been a mentor, a friend, and a family priest to our family. One of the things that he have lived with me is the truth. He says the truth is like a lion. Uh, it doesn't need anybody to defend it. Once you speak the truth, you should have no. And there are other people as well in my community who have shared a lot of strong values in me. But I think growing up in Salisbury has really shaped the person I have become today. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And as we continue to talk about our Dominican roots, I also think that it is also important that we talk about the institutions which may have positively impacted us and helped to instill these values. So, any particular institutions come to mind for our guests this evening?
An
Well,
institution.
absolutely. I would say the church systems has been an integral part of my life, notably the Catholic Church, but other churches as well. I mean, I still listen to pastors and so forth. I think the institution of religion is a key element in society. And of course, the education system has, of course, trained me to be the person I am. And most importantly, among all of these, I would say is the family. Growing up in a nuclear family with a father and a mother, I think kept me very stable and very grounded.
Yes, thank you. Heman?
I must side with Dr. Dion because the church is that institution that going to instill quite a lot of values. See, I'm a strong believer in religious stuff, um, but just not just reading and just listening to what is being said, but just studying the Word of God. That actually build you up spiritually, but also the education system going to help you deal with stuff in the world. I love science, and obviously you have to be in the education system for you to understand few things that actually happening. But spiritually, that institution, the church, is the main influencer in whatever I do.
Yes, absolutely. Barry?
Um, the, ch- the church has really helped in terms of building me up spiritually and the different values that I've grown up with. Um, I'm a very spiritual person all my life. I've been in church. I went to the Holy Gospel Mission. Now I'm working with Pastor um, uh, Pastor Peter Augustine,
Mhm.
Pentecostal church. So the church has really helped me in my throughout my life.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think our final guest, Dr. Tesha, is trying to join us as well. So as soon as she joins, we will have her introduce herself as well. But I want to kind of go back to you, Heman, because, one of the things we want to do with this program is to celebrate the achievements of Dominicans at home and abroad. And you've done a fantastic thing of founding your own institution in Portsmouth. And I had an opportunity to interview you about a year ago, and I was very impressed with what you've done. So, could you just tell us about your institution and your programs and your enrollment, your current enrollment, and your offerings at this time?
Well, Academic School of Learning, we started in 2008 actually. And we started basically because of the number of high school dropouts we had in the area. And a lot of individuals, asked in order for them to get a form of certification in order to get a job or something in that sort. And also adults that needed an education, in Dominica back in 1990, back in the 80s, you would learn about the individuals that did not even have a calculator or could not afford a calculator. So um, when we started, at least we saw a lot of adults coming in and they could learn math and English and all those kind of things. And then we ventured into the CAPE program because the entire Caribbean is doing CAPE, and Dominica, we had the other institution doing the CAPE program, but we wanted to really let the CAPE, have a voice in the country because it is an accredited course. And getting into the CAPE program, I said, okay, we cannot just start low. We started with a lot of associate degrees, in offering. And these associate degrees, associate in science, we do the natural sciences, the physics, the chemistry, the biology. We also do agricultural science. We now introduce in sports studies. And we also do industrial technology that would actually encompass the building engineering and drawing, and also electrical and electronic engineering. So this course, it is well rounded, and with all these resilient homes we want to build. We need students to be able to do those things, through technology, etc. Because is is AutoCAD, you have to be drawing on computer now. It's no longer the time when you have to have your hands with T-square and so on. So you have to get into technology with those things and let them understand how to do those things from paper to the structure itself. And we also have associate degrees in entrepreneurship, accounting, and economics, tourism, law. We really embrace this law program because the law in the Caribbean, is more like the British law. So we wanted to ensure that our students could actually, transit to UE because you have to go to UE, do the law program there, go to Trinidad, continue your program in Trinidad, get to the bar, and then that is basically the process to do that whole Caribbean law. So we tried our best to help our students, but not only that, we also had our technology included into delivering the program. And when we added the technology into it, we have the smart boards and record all our classes. We provide ebooks for the students because it is very costly for individuals to purchase books. Sometimes you would buy one book for like $200, and you do it just for one semester. So we try to purchase the ebooks for the students. We put it on our platform. We actually have a platform where we could integrate even Google Meet and Google Classroom into it. But it's a platform that we actually partner with an Australian company. It is costly, but it will actually benefit Dominicans, quite a bit. So we could actually put the information on the platform for the students, and we could do the online testing, we could record all our classes, and we could post it for the students. So gone are the days where you're going to actually have students come in and say, sir, we need to review. At least they could go back on the platform and they could look at all these videos and all their tests and all the other materials that are available, even resource materials. And now we have introduced a library where we could have resource materials, no longer to go in the library and search books, but at least you can go on our platform and you could see all the books that are available that could assist you in, being a well-rounded student in the particular field you choose with us. So we are doing about 50, 45, no, 45 KIT courses presently. And also we are doing about 15 CSEC courses because we need continuity. We don't want to just forget where we started. So we started with high school dropouts and adults need an education, and also high school students need reinforcements so that we could allow students to not just choose 7 subjects, but they could choose 12 and 13 subjects because you cannot just choose your career from third form. You need to choose your career after you get some information in your head, and then you will decide, okay, I feel I can go to a business field, or I feel I could go to a science field, but not just limit the student to just do business from third form up. And then when you get into the market, into the world of work, you're saying, okay, well, I should have gone to sports, or I should have gone to, sciences, or I should have gone to technology. So we try to open up the avenue for students to learn different things, not trying to force it onto them because not everybody are capable of doing 14 and 12 and 11 subjects. But at least those that are capable will not limit them. So we'll give them an opportunity so that they could do more subjects and they could widen their scope. Because when we leave Dominica, it's outside there that they have opportunities, you understand? And giving students that chance in order for them to venture into a wider field, that is really my goal. It really brings joy, just to know that we can bring out some students, bring out the ability of students, through technology and learning in academic school as well.
Yes, I can tell you will have a lot to share with us in terms of technology and how you've been able to embrace technology at your facility. And of course, if any calls are coming in, Lambi, you will let us know so we can take those calls as well. But I want to continue the conversation. And I think it is so important that we are having this conversation right now. It is so timely because the national assessments just came out in Dominica. So I want us to have a quick conversation about the national assessments. As we know, before it was called Common Entrance, and it was a very selective process that only, it limited the number of students who went to high school. So I want us to talk about the pros and the cons of the fact that now more students have the opportunity to go to high school. And of course, anyone can feel free to jump in on that question.
Well, the pros on that, I would say for the national assessment, the fact that every student would have an opportunity to go to secondary school, that is a plus. So limiting students is always negative in my mind. But if students have to go to secondary school, stereotyping is also bad. And sometimes students need to reach a certain standard in order for them to get to another level. And because we'll just throw everyone into the secondary school, there's where the cons would be. So I would assume that someone in here would support me on the cons and they could actually discuss it, doctor?
Barry?
All right. The fact of the matter is that the last system, which was the common entrance, what happened is that I found it limited a lot of students, particularly from the low-income background. So what you have basically students who actually had resources, computers, able to travel more, able to adapt better for the common entrance. That will help in terms of their writing skills, it also help in terms of their creativity, right? But the new system has allowed for greater access for wider pool of students. But not much has changed because still the students who come from higher income and middle class families are still going to be the top students more often than not. So what the system has done basically is actually take the middle class and upper class students and put them in the better school systems. So more often than not, the scholarships are going to convent for girls, scholarship boys are going to SME for boys. Traditionally, those schools are generally top schools in Dominica. So what the new system has done is basically put in a selection process for the top students to go to the best schools. So not much really has changed, except that greater access. You have greater access for students. What we also have generally is that a lot of students are not at the level where they're supposed to be from first form. So more has to be done at the preschool level and also at the primary level. So when they get to the secondary level, the teachers have it's a lot easier for the teachers to work with the students that they have. So while the system has changed, not much has really changed, only except that there's greater access. Also, that I find at the primary level there's not much room for technical courses. So children who are not particularly academically inclined, who are not strong in terms of the academics, it doesn't give them the leeway to move into technical courses. And quite often, the people who are in the technical area, they are often the more creative students. So what you really have to do is to try to merge or marry the students who are strong in the technical field to have them actually grasp the academic field. Also, too, I find the systems that we have in the Caribbean is still chalk and talk, where not much technology has actually integrated in the classroom setting. And it has really bored a lot of the students at the primary level. The students at the primary level we have now, the amount of information they have is far more than what we had in the students who actually grew up in the 90s. So the teaching system has to change. The method in which we teach our students, those things have to change. Once we have made greater improvements in those areas, I think at the high school level, the teachers at the high school level will have an easier route.
Yes, thank you for sharing. Dion, did you have anything you would like to share?
Yes, on the question of the national assessment, the common entrance, I will say that I think the move to the national assessment, it's a good move. I say so because it has a level of inclusiveness in it. And I think that is critical because students are non-fungible. Students are non-replaceable, which also means that students have different skills, students have different abilities, and students have different life circumstances. What that would mean is that students would need varying level of help. And I can use myself for an example. I will confess to you that I almost did not pass common entrance.
Me too.
I almost did not pass common entrance, whereas other people in the community got scholarship and bursary. I scraped it through. But interestingly, when I went to high school, I don't remember coming out on next number except number one. And
Mm.
when I went to college, and when I graduated from St. Joseph, I had the highest grade in CXC. And you're talking about someone who almost did not pass common entrance. When I went to university, I was valedictorian in the master's degree. I came out number one in my PhD program. And I'm saying that to simply tell you that I could have not had that chance if I did not script the common entrance. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is the whole idea of students being non-fungible and students learning at different level, I think it's a very good thing to give a failing student an opportunity to grow. So I will say that. On the con side, one can argue that perhaps if there are students of varying level, so you might have a really bright student or a few very bright students in a class with some other slower student, one can argue that might hold back the progress of those advanced students, right? And so one can look at it from that perspective. But generally speaking, I think the inclusiveness and the giving an opportunity to slower learners, I think that's a good thing.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing and congratulations on your academic successes. Now, before we get into the heart of this discussion, which is really the impact of technology, especially as it relates to COVID-19 and how quickly we had to adapt our learning to technology, I want to also talk about opportunities for low-income students to be able to attain higher education. So for that one, I want to go over to you, Dr. Barry Casimir, and if you can tell us about opportunities for lower income students to gain access to higher education.
The fact of the matter is that it's always difficult for lower income students to gain enter higher education. The interest on loans are very high, which makes it very difficult in terms of to get collateral and all these other avenues for low income students. We also have the situations where even to the simple um, application process becomes very complex for many students when they apply for higher education. Also, to low income students, they are not coached at a very young age to actually get them to actually know what they want to do at the age when they want to move into higher education. Lastly, quite often the information as to getting scholarships, it's not accessible more often than not for lower income students. So lower income students have an uphill battle from high school up to higher education. What we must do is to put systems in place. I see the government has instituted a situation where they have low income loans at the aid bank. So those kinds of measures are going to assist low income students to actually move into higher education. Also, to we've seen where the government has actually come in and help students from low income backgrounds to actually do degree programs. They could get scholarships, Cuban scholarships, and all these China scholarships, and all these different areas. Also, UE scholarships. The Sir Arthur Lewis Scholarship is one of the scholarships that the University of the West Indies have put in place for low income students and for Kalinago students based on need. So they are avenues for low income students to actually get scholarships to further education. The problem is that quite often the information is not readily available and accessible for low income students. And quite often the opportunities are there, but they actually don't access it more often than not. Also, to they may not have the qualifications to actually get into higher education. So you have that issue as well. So there are avenues for low-income students to enter higher education, but quite often accessing the information can be a bit of a problem.
Yes, yes. And what I'm hearing you saying is many times what it boils down to is having that conversation early in the child's
Of course,
life.
of course,
So
of
it
course,
sounds like there is a big disparity
of
between
course,
low-income families and
of course.
opulent, maybe wealthier families who have that conversation with their children at a younger age, that the expectation is that you will go to college, you will pursue a career, you will pursue higher education. So is that what you're saying? And feel free, Dion and Herman, to join in as well.
The other thing too, quite often in students hear certain career choices, say accounting, medicine. You move into these areas. But when you get into the areas, you realize those are not areas where you're strong. So that goes back to the coaching aspect of it from a very young age, making the students know what an accountant does, what a lawyer does. It's something that you'd like to do, all these different things, but it starts at a very young age to actually get the students involved or make them know what these career choices are, that they can actually go on, that they can actually do it as they get older.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Dr. Barry, that's for sure. But low-income students has have what I would call that determination that drives them on. And they may not have the income to go on to higher level education, but there are some things in place that could definitely help them, like the SAT program. Um, the entry exams in the American schools, it appears that most of our students want to, just go up to America, and it works at times. But because of their determination, getting into the school and having few courses, at least we have the opportunity to go to get a college degree in Dominica. Um, Getting into the colleges or universities in America with an SAT score, a high enough SAT score, you can actually get exempt for some of the courses, and because of how determined they are, and a little help, they could actually get a scholarship for the schools. There are a lot of scholarships that are available from the universities, and we do the CAPE program at academics. There are few students that get a partial scholarship to get into University of Florida. Um, the,
Yes.
Yes,
the, they
I
did
would
not
like
get the
to.
opportunity. They did not get the opportunity to get a scholarship to go there, but because of their scores, they could actually get a partial scholarship. Now it's up to them. If they get the opportunity to reach there and to perform, then that school could actually help that student, to actually see their dreams come true.
Yes,
Yeah,
Dr. George.
Yes, Dr. Matthew, I would like to agree with Mr. Herman Williams. I think that's a poignant uh, point that he's making with the determination of students of lower income. And I like to use real life examples because sometimes it brings out the reality. For example, myself, I never foresee myself going and study overseas. I wasn't sure if my parents could have uh, sponsored my sister who went before me, and then I was just a year after her. I mean, there would have been a lot of pressure on my parents. But by the grace of God, there was a program at Midwestern State University, and I think the deal was if you were able to maintain a B plus average, that you would be granted in-state tuition, which is grossly reduced, right? And I recall very well seeing, of course, the American students having their cars, the Japanese students having cars, and people from other places enjoying school. And that wasn't my experience. My experience was I had to be washing plates in the cafeteria and then go and sit down in class, smelling of dishes. I had to be cleaning toilets. And if I get a job in the night to answer the phone on the dorms, and that was my reality. My reality. Now, what I think that did in support of Mr. Williams' point, I did not have a choice but to succeed. I couldn't take such a big investment in my life, in my time, in my sacrifice, failure was not an option. And so I think the point that Mr. William made is a salient point, that students of lower income, if given an opportunity of such, can really make a difference. And I think one of the purpose, Dr. Matthew, of this roots connection, I recall very well Mr. G talking about his own experience, his own struggles. And I think the purpose of doing that is to let the upcoming students know that if that person can do it, then they can do it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when they see the struggle that someone goes through, let them not think that success is out of their reach. Let them always have hope. Let them always believe that there is a way. And even if they do not see a way, but keep trying hard and the door can open. And when they get that chance, make it count.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that valuable contribution, everyone. And of course, Dion knows that I'm a graduate of MSU as well. So I certainly can identify with your experiences. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to go over to the studios of Q95 while we get queued up for your phone calls. If you would like to make a contribution, this is your opportunity to do so. So Lambi will play us a little track, and we will listen to the phone numbers where you can reach us, and we will be right back. So I'm not sure if you're muted, Lambi, but we can't hear you. And in the meantime, we'll just acknowledge everyone who's joining us.
What's driving me crazy? Shaking at my feet. Feel a weight upon my shoulder.
This is the Roots Connection. The numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257, 305-432-9624.
You give me hope when I'm sick and sad. Feeling lonely in a crowd. When everything's pulling me in every direction, you're my anchor, you're my solid ground. I'm searching for a find. Your medicine for the morning sun.
Go ahead with the call, please. Caller, go ahead, please.
I say praises, thanks, blessings, and glory to all those with humanity. Lambi, blessings to your family, sir. Hey, Lambi.
Blessings, go ahead.
Yes. Let me just say good night to everybody. Blessings to everybody. Lambi, in the whole rethinking and the people on the panel, education, it is a little annoying sometimes. I listen to a saying where they say, people that are educated usually use that. A little education is a very dangerous thing. And I'm watching a world that is run by educated people, intellectuals, and we are in a very sorry state. Rethinking education as a people, we watch the whole curriculum within the educational structure. It is not really, we have very, very, very little to do with any innovative or creative introduction to what is already established. And we as a people, that is why we are at the bottom of the barrel, because we compete against each other. And we are not looking at the Japanese, the Chinese, and the Europeans, the Indians, the Asians and all of them, the way they have start from the very bottom and rise on top as a people, we do what we're doing with our education, individually, but in the collective, there seems to be very, very little inroad. So I was just saying in rethinking education, people have the master's and the PhD, and they get somewhere as a person or with the family. But we're talking about a people rethinking education. What can that transition or that evolution or the reintroduction of whatever we are introducing into the structure we have established for us? Look at like African Liberation Day and Black History Month, and 365 is every other history. I mean, what can we do as a people in the collective to bring about some transition, because even it's basic things in concluding, the whole etymology of words, the meanings, the evolution of words and meanings. What do we have to do with what we have already met? So even I do not really take offense. I'm not being offended when I listen to educated people say, oh, a little education is a very dangerous thing. And I'm watching the world and I'm saying a lot of education can be destructive because a lot of educated people are not grounded as a people. It is too individualistic, so we are not getting anywhere. We seem to be running around in circles, not wanting to offend anyone, but I'm just saying I wanted to insert that in the argument because we come from a continent, the richest continent on the face of the earth, the richest place. And we yet to capitalize on that with all our education, all our knowledge. Look at where we are as a people. Thank you. Blessings.
It's driving me crazy. Birds are shaking at my feet. Feel a weight upon my shoulder. You're my rescue, you're my remedy. Everything about you frees me.
For the last time, the numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257, 305-432-9624. We're taking your calls right now.
You give me hope. You're like the sun. No, I don't understand. You give me hope. When I want to sink in the sand. Feeling lonely in a crowd. When everything's pulling me in every direction. You're my anchor, you're my solid ground.
Yeah, so thank you, Lammy. Thank you for taking that call, that very important call from Blessings. Blessings, thank you so much for calling in. And I completely agree with you because one of the things that we have to consider while we are rethinking education is how do we integrate who we are into our educational systems. So here we are talking about the importance of technology. Here we are talking about access to higher education, but you make an absolutely valid point that part of rethinking education as well is inserting our culture, inserting our Creole language. For example, I was listening to one of Waddick's program, and one of the things they were talking about was why not have Creole as an option as a language? So we offer Spanish, we offer French. Why not add Creole as a language? And I'm so happy that we have Dr. Barry Casimir from UWI with us on the program because he can probably speak to the importance as well of including Creole as part of our curriculum in school. So Blessings, I completely agree with you and thank you very much for your contribution and for highlighting that very important point. Barry, you want to add something to that? You're muted.
Presently, the Ministry of Education is trying to include the queer language at the primary level. So that's a start at this point. I'm a firm believer that people who can speak more than one language um, it puts you at a competitive advantage. Whether you work at a supermarket, whether you're a manager, whether you're a politician, your ability to speak the Creole language puts you at a decisive advantage over people who can't speak Creole. And what I've always said is that we should try to speak more of the Creole language, make it be part of us. Not that we speak it only at independence. We speak the Creole, we make the Creole language part of us, we speak it every day. We speak it in our everyday life. And what the research has shown really is that children who speak both Creole and English, they actually do better in school than children who speak only the English language. So that's the importance of actually speaking a different language, particularly our Creole language. It is ours.
Absolutely. Anyone else wants to chime in?
Yes,
Dion?
I would like to comment on the whole idea of rethinking education. Yes, culture is important, um, but sometimes we have to involve culture, but sometimes we have to move away from culture. And what I mean by that is there can be, and there usually is, some degree of pain involved in giving up old ways and the way of thinking. And there is something which is called ethical pedagogy, and it's the pedagogy of kindness. That is, how do we teach to make students succeed? And I just want to comment on a few of them as we rethink education. Uh, one of our culture, one of our way of life in the Caribbean and even in the USVI, I've seen that. Uh, we as professors have this attitude, oh, that we're not going to spoon feed the children. They have to work and get their grade. Well, the rethinking aspect of this new pedagogy says do not see it as spoon feeding the students, rather see it as working with the student, meeting them where they are. You're not going to give them the answer, but you're not just going to challenge them because it could throw off certain students. That's one aspect of this new pedagogy. Another example is you better sink or swim, where you just put the work in front of the student and you ask them to do it. Well, this new idea of rethinking education, it's a modus operandi that brings an atmosphere of relaxation in the classroom, where the student is not scared or frightened of the professor, but where the student is relaxed and the student trusts that the professor really wants them to succeed. And we talk about rethinking, and that's a different approach. Also, sometimes when professors give a grade and the student asks about the grade, some professors get so defensive in defending, that's why I gave you the grade. Well, in this new approach of thinking of how can we rethink education, the idea of giving feedback and letting the student understand this is what the optimum answer ought to be, this is what you give, and this is how you lose your points. Moving forward, this is what you can do, instead of strictly defending your grade as if the student is taking you to court. And so in this whole idea of rethinking education, I'm just mentioning some of the new approaches of rethinking. Also, professors ought to be more flexible in their deadlines. So for example, you say an assignment is due 12 o'clock on Friday, and a student was late. But anyway, they did it and it came in on Saturday. I mean, you cannot just tell the student, okay, you're late, I'm not gonna accept it, or I'm gonna take out 50%. Well, straight off the bat, you're setting up that student to fail. And so this whole idea of kindness and rethinking education comes into the whole idea of it. And the last point I want to make from a professor's perspective on rethinking education is the view that students ought not to be seen as a novice or I know and you don't know. Students ought to be considered as a collaborator in learning, and and that they can have their own self-reflection, and that they trust that you would guide them in their growth in their growth pattern. And so I just wanted to mention these points in the whole idea of rethinking education.
Yes, I appreciate that, Dion. And again, Lambi, if any calls are coming in, let us know. So go ahead and please take the call. Thank you. Oh, we can't hear you.
Yes, go ahead.
When we left Africa, didn't we come down with our own language as a slave? When we left Africa as slaves, did we come down to the West with our language?
Well, we had languages from Africa, so yes.
But what become of our language?
We lost it.
Eh?
We lost the languages.
And why not try to bring it back on the curriculum in the schoolroom?
That's a valid point.
French pathway is book for French.
Barry, you want to jump in on that?
Nobody talking about it about French. It's because of the French domination we speak in patois. Otherwise, we would never know about the speaking patois because of the French domination.
Some of the Creole words are actually African Kalinago and French words. So
Kalinago is Kalinago.
no, I'm saying some of our Creole, the Creole that we speak, some of the words are actually African, some of it is Kalinago, and some of it it's French. So it's a merging of the different languages. And that is why Creole is so important, because it actually highlights our past, and actually it's actually what makes us.
And I'm a staunch follower of Wadix and Keck, and I think they will find it highly offensive that you called Creole broken French, because that is a stereotype that we have been fighting, that Creole is not a broken French, it's a language all in its own.
Yeah, caller, you're doubling with the host. Let's hold on.
Yes, he can go ahead, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
I say there's grammatical French and grammatical English, but when you talk about patois, is there any grammatical language? Is patois grammatical language?
Patois is a language.
It is
a language.
We try to make it a language.
But thank you.
And nobody talking about introducing it in the school.
Yes, but
thank you. Our own language.
Yes, thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution. Yes, yes. So I want to go back to what Dion was saying, because, you know, I've had the experience of both being, you know, in a U.S. institution where a lot of what you said applies, where professors are more flexible, they're willing to work with you, as opposed to when I went to school in the Caribbean and it was sink or swim. Right. So, you know I've never attended UWI, but I have to go back to you, Barry, because I've heard stories of friends of mine who attended UWI, and I've heard them say that professors will challenge you and say, you will not pass my class. Now, this was back in the 90s, so I cannot speak for today, but I think it is a very important point that Dion raised in terms of rethinking even how we teach those of us who are in the classroom. And I also want to hear from Herman, but we have a call coming in, so think about the responses to those questions.
Go ahead with your caller.
Yeah, just a quick question having to do with something I suggested. Let me give thanks to the Empress as well. Is it an impossibility, or is it too dangerous for us to think in the sense of, and I do not see Kalinago outside of Afrikaans? Based on our geographic space and our history, I do not think we should look at Kalinago outside of African perspective having to do with liberation and development. Particularly, we were forced on them, imposed on them. What I'm saying, having to look forward to use education. That's what all of them did, technology and education. And now they're superpowers. Look at China. China was on the receiving end of the Mongolians, the Russians, the English people, the British, and they fought many wars, the Japanese, and now look at China. What did that? It's education, it's technology. How can we as a people, instead of that myopic view of individualistic achievement. How can we use education in the collective to make us look forward to a continent that is so rich? Now look, the Chinese up there beating people, fighting people, conquering the same conquest like the Europeans, and we are sitting in the West or in the West Indies, and we just feel satisfied in getting our individual achievement having to do with our degrees, and we get stuck in the mud, just skidding, and getting nowhere. Is it an impossibility? Thanks.
Yes, yes, and that is also a valid point. And I'm going to come back to you guys. I'm not letting you off the hook with that question that I asked you, but that is a valid point that Blessing is making, because I've heard stories, for example, where, everyone is at medical school and they're the Indian students and they're completely collaborating on everything. They're passing around exam papers, they're passing around knowledge, they're passing around resources, so that as a collective, they are succeeding. So Blessings raise a very important point, that when we collaborate, we are more successful. And I'm hoping that is what we are doing with this program. We're tapping into the expertise, we're tapping into the minds, we're bringing the information to the forefront, so that all of us as Dominicans at home and abroad, we can benefit from this education and we can advance our lives. We can gain economic opportunity with what we are discussing this evening. So again, Blessings, thank you for that point. And I also want the folks on Facebook to know I have not forgotten about you. I truly appreciate your comments that you're posting, and I'm coming over to you in just a minute. But before I do, I want to go back to Herman and Barry. They probably thought I forgot to ask them a question. I didn't. So let's have your responses. Do I need to repeat the question?
Go ahead.
Well,
Repeat it again, please.
I think Herman is ready. I'll repeat it after Herman speaks, Barry.
Okay.
well, I've been listening. I'm hearing about culture, which obviously I support the fact that we have to have our culture, but we cannot move forward looking in our rearview mirror. I mean, you can be driving a vehicle and you're looking in a rearview mirror all along, and you'll cause accidents. I mean, you have to take a glimpse to know what was there, and move forward on that. I mean, the internet have came in some time ago, back in the 80s and in the 90s. It become accessible to every family in let's say in the 2000s, right? And even in Dominica, we were not really into all that internet in the early 2000s. I mean, America was all into it, and eventually became a part of our lives when it started to fit in our pockets. Everyone has smartphones, and the world is moving forward. I mean, our culture, yes, is very important, but we need to move on with the systems of the world. And yes, we make mention of the caller made mention of the Chinese and all the Indians and so on that work together. But we have to understand it's a different system that they use. And these students, even from the children, they actually groomed into what they want to become. They have computers in the school from primary school, from very early childhood. And these students grow up, building up their knowledge with this technology, and transition into different higher level education for these students are very easy. For us now, in Dominica, we come out in chalk and talk, and we go into secondary school, chalk and talk, and then we go into college, chalk and talk, and then we go into university, and it's totally different. And we take some time to transit, into the university, the methods that they use, and so on. When come to, I agree with Dr. Dion here, speaking about, how teachers sometimes would be too rigid, you understand? And what I believe as a tutor, my way I actually tutor maths and physics, and I always focus on topic, content, concepts, structure, and time. And what happens when we elicit from students, we appear to pack on content a lot, and allow the students to go and research and do all kind of things, and come and bring to us, the lecturers or the tutors, the information that we could actually give to them. And I believe that merging the American system and the British system in the way that we tutor our students would be the best thing. The Americans would actually give you the information. I have experience of a lot of online programs where we're doing quizzes every week or every 2 weeks, and then sometimes you have repetition of of questions, and these students still learn because they have a final exam. With the British system, obviously, you have the elicit from the students. You have to go and research, and you have to go in library, sit down how many hours reading back in the days. But if we merge it, if we give students the information, what they need, then having smartphones and using it wisely, we can actually add to whatever the tutor have actually given to these students. And that could actually enhance these students' ability in the particular field. But listen, it's technology again. It is right in our fingertips. We actually use these smartphones wrongly. We do it for WhatsApp and to make calls and so on. But listen, these smartphones, everything is on Google. I always say that after Jesus is Google. Jesus know everything, but just type something on Google and you'll find it. And if we can actually let students use those things, even in classrooms, and in Dominica, we're not going to actually have students with phones in classrooms. But if we can teach them to be disciplined, they could actually use these devices in the classrooms. And that would keep our lecturers and our teachers in check. Because our lecturers and our teachers would ensure that they are well prepared and they will actually work on content. After they finish with content, they could work on the concepts, but the students are actually on the device getting the information, and then we can work on structure, different exam structures and so on. Based on the exam you are doing, you can work on the structure. And then the problem with students is usually time management, and there's where we usually lapse. Lecturers and tutors, etc., lapse when come to time, teaching students how to work within a particular time. You could be the brightest student and working slow. You will get the grades like the student that is underachieving. And it's just a structure we have to set. And if we, as the head of institutions, could actually sit and maybe organize a structured way of delivering content, which is important, then students would be able to grasp concepts, obviously using technology that would make things easy for them. This structure would be able to help them to work with the structure of questions and how to respond to questions and how to do questions, etc. And also how to approach these questions so that they could limit the amount of time they take on them. And there is where we'll actually have students, performing at the highest level. That's just what I believe.
Absolutely. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. So, Barry, so we're talking about which philosophy do you think would work better? Do we think the British, where it is sink or swim, or more of the American system, where it's a collaboration between professors and students? So it's not as rigid.
Well, the open campus have adopted more of a merger between what the American is doing and what the British are doing. I've heard of those situations where you had lecturers in the past where it's a sink or swim situation, but much of that has changed. That was an archaic way of teaching style. But right now, the students are part of the whole learning process. So it's no longer it's where it's a jog and mug situation where the lecturers point to the students. The students come in and it is more or less having experiential learning. The students come in and the students also contribute to the whole learning process, and that makes learning enjoyable. That gives the students the opportunity to be part of the process. So much of the teaching and the pedagogy um, has changed. Much of the teaching and the whole way the University of the West Indies has structured their teaching and learning has changed considerably by the dawn of the 2000s.
Yes, yes. So I want to thank everyone for their contribution, and we're going to go over to Facebook Live now to see where everyone is making a contribution as well. So we want to say good evening to DJ Kubali Tuse, Indigenous Bushman, Carl Kofi James, who says greetings, Simone, and the members of your panel. Looking forward to a great program this evening. David Joseph, always great to see you. Pleasant good evening. He's looking forward to the program. Hi, Tina Bell. So we just want to acknowledge everyone who's joining us on the Facebook Live this evening. Of course, I cannot get to all the names, but I want to thank you for being here. We have Helen Francis, Beverly Johnson. So thank you for being here. And we have a contribution from Leslie Charles that I wanted to read as we continue the discussion on rethinking education, especially as it relates to technology. So we have Leslie Charles out of St. Lucia, and he says a significant aspect of our education should be geared towards addressing solving problems in our society. What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen? Somebody would like to jump in, or do I need to? I agree. We should be solving problems with our educational systems because it's truly about, in my mind, education is about critical thinking. It's not about being able to regurgitate information that you read out of a textbook, but how do you take that information and how do you apply it to real world problems so that we can create solutions all around? We hear about the climate, the impact of, the warming temperatures on our world. How can we use education to address major issues such as those?
Well, what I like about the CAPE program is that every course has a practical aspect to it. Solving our problems, there are a lot of problems. We have the tourism sector. How are we going to get students to just get into the tourism sector? Not just by giving them information from the book, but with the CAPE program, you actually have to do a model, right? You have to write a business plan in one of the units, and then you have to do a tourism model. So you have to actually build something on your own. For entrepreneurship, you have to do an SBA, school-based assessment, right? For building, you have to build, it's like they're asking you to do something practical. So it's like you're getting not just the paperwork, but at least some form of practical experience while you're doing the course. And if each of these courses could have something like that, it would be easy to get the students into the the working force. I mean, we would like them to go to university and so on, but that is how we can possibly solve our problems. If we can educate students, not just by teaching them with the book, but also letting them have that SBA done, a school-based assessment for them to understand how we can implement what you learn into society. Now, when they have learned that in school, then they can get to help solve problems. But then again, we still have to have leaders that would actually support the knowledge of those that actually have learned, to come in rather than to have a rigid system to say, okay, that is the way it is set and you have to do it this way, rather than saying, okay, you come with some innovative ideas. Let us try to work with it. Let us see how it can actually change something in our society, but that always work with, dedicated people, obviously, and also leaders that would actually support those that come with different ideas. That's how I feel we can solve some of our society problems.
Yes, anyone else?
Well, I mean, uh, the person who asked a question about solving problems, I mean, by definition, education is an institution. And by definition, an institution is a organization in society that is permanent and it solves problems, it performs a function. So for example, religion, education, the prison system. And by definition, what it means, therefore, is the people who go to school, they go to school to learn some sort of skill or knowledge with the idea of using it in a function. Indeed, I can even share with you on a philosophical level, the sociologist Karl Marx, he says that religion is the opiate of the people. But in a deeper level, he argues that religion and education, they are all what he called the superstructure. And he says these superstructures are pillars that keep the system uh, perpetuating the way it is. And the way he describes the system is that you have the upper class and of course you have the lower class. And he says education is one of those pillars that holds the system in place. I say that because it simply means that we go to school to learn skills so that society can function. So for example, a political scientist can try to tell the government best ways on electoral reform. A psychologist can try to help somebody that has a mental problem. An accountant will do your banking. A police officer will charge you and arrest you. And so, I mean, there are different sectors in education, but I think by its mere existence, the education system is one that prepares individuals to work in society. I think that's how I would leave it.
Yes, Barry? You're muted.
I'd have to agree with Dion in terms of the education system actually helping to actually key the ills well actually really how should I put it really improve society or make society better. Really and truly our system, really the education system, as it relates to if we invest in more science, will actually make us help us to have more inventions to cure different things or to remedy certain ills in society. So I think it's a matter of getting our students in a particular position where they can actually, when they finish school, they can actually improve our society one way or another. So the education system has to be placed in such a way that you have this practical element of the school system, and when the students get out, they can actually make a big difference. What we have seen quite often, many people have said, when students get out of university education, they get into the work system. A person who gets a first class, generally, you would expect them to actually be very efficient in certain key areas. But what you find is that um, they're worse off than the people who did not even go to higher education. So the school systems really and truly, particularly higher education, the most essential that when the students leave their doors, that they are not only equipped with the right knowledge to improve society or certain systems, but also that they have the right tools that they can actually make a change in society.
Yes, very well said, very well said. And before we move on to our final question for the evening, the impact of COVID-19 and how quickly we had to embrace technology, I want to continue to acknowledge everyone who's joining us via Facebook Live. And I do apologize if I miss your name, but we have quite a few people on the Facebook Live. So again, my apologies if I miss you. Maybe I'll catch you the next time on the program. So we have Merle Bendo, we have Anne Dominique, Maggie, John Jules, Gilbert, Signorette, Owen Prosper. So thank you all for being here this evening with us as we continue this very important discussion. Then we have a contribution from Peter Carbon, and he says, good character and a positive attitude is just as important in the development process. And we have also Junior Martin and Miko Joan who are joining us via the Facebook Live. So keep the conversation going, keep the contributions coming on Facebook Live. And my question to you now is how technology has impacted the field of education and training. So are we seeing a permanent change? Has COVID-19 forced us to embrace technology? And I think I would like to start with Herman on that particular question, because I know that because of technology, you have been able to significantly grow your program. So just kind of tell us about your experience with COVID-19 and how, technology played a key role for you and your institution, Academic School of Learning, out there in Portsmouth. You're muted. And bring the mic closer.
So, COVID-19, we don't want to say, thank God for COVID-19. That would be something terrible. But COVID-19 have actually, placed a bit of fire under our feet in order for us to leap for technology in education. It was just a must that we had to do it, and not just academics, but around the world. We could see millions of individuals could not even get a chance for to have education. But in Portsmouth, and we are moving to Roseau. That's a nice thing as well. We're going to have a space in Roseau as well, just to have the students from that district to have a chance to be at academics as well, with no long travel. But what it have done, it have improved the ability to meet special needs. We have situations where there are some students that actually needed to get that level of education. And seeing that somebody that is not physically able to come to a normal classroom setting. In the past, a rigid classroom structure defined the whole world of the way or I would say the world of academia. And each student had the same experience, no matter the different needs, whether it is physical, whether it is emotional. Everyone had to come in the same classroom, and that was a problem. But now technology, what it have done, it have improved the school's ability to meet the needs of all type of students, and that is one benefit. That is one of the main benefits, is that we could meet people that are struggling to actually um, reach to the normal classroom setting. The other thing, we have a challenge of trying to help individuals, at least one individual that is visually impaired. Now, this one is a real challenging situation, but on the computer, it have students that actually could type. They have special computer and the programs in order for these students that are visually impaired to actually learn. So that is how technology can actually really enhance learning for everyone. The availability of online learning content, that is another thing. We could actually make available to all the students the textbooks. We all went to school, and some of us did not have textbooks. So some students, the upper class, could have the textbooks, and they had the advantage because they could study at home. And only when we go to school, we could actually maybe read some information from the textbook, or maybe go to the library and maybe see what we need to do, or maybe do all our homework at the school. But now, if on with the online platform that we have at academics, we could make all the online content, all the content available for every student online. Now that is an advantage. No student is at a disadvantage to say, okay, I'm not fortunate enough to purchase the materials or to purchase the ebooks. COVID have actually expanded our knowledge, just to try to see how can we reach out to students. You see, there's a greater emphasis um, on the grades. When students pass, we always look at what are the grades, if they get A's and B's and so on. Well, for me, I want to ensure that I reach out to everyone, that everyone would have the equal opportunity to get those grades. So everyone would look at the grades, but I want to make sure that everyone could have that equal opportunity. The adaptability and the the shifting of a classroom dynamic, all those things, it was new. It is a new experience for all of us. And lastly, you see, preparing students for what I would call a technology-based world. The entire world. We could see in Dominica, we just had a meet where they discussed a digital economy. We could hear the Prime Minister speak about that. But all these are all gearing up students for what? A technology-based world. And because books and face-to-face lectures have dominated the intellectual and academic spaces for so long, there are plenty of people who felt a bit scandalized by the sudden inclusion of video presentation. Now we have iPads, e-books, podcasts, and all those things have helped students. And yes, it's a work in progress, but is all gearing our students, to be prepared for that technology-based world that we are living in. And everything now, I mean, accountants have to look out because now they have systems working everything. We have to have the education to work on the QuickBooks. QuickBooks appears now to be doing financial statements. Before time, you would have to get to somebody and they'll do it in 3 days, 5 days. But now there's QuickBooks, and you put in all your records for the year, and then you click a button and it will present, a financial statement to you. So all those things we have to incorporate our lives, the student that we prepare, for that technology-based world. And we have to start it from the school system, that we have to let them learn with technology, let them get used to technology, that when they get into the world of technology, they will be able to perform, just as the wider world is performing in
Yes,
Dominica.
and I can see that you've highlighted some great benefits of technology in education. And I also want us to think along the line of training as well, because by embracing the training, we also give ourselves opportunities for job advancements, for career advancements. But I cannot help but think as well as of the digital divide that exists in so many places. For example, in Dominica, we had a young lady, Whitney Milliner, on a program recently, and she talked about the lack of internet service in the Kalinago territory. So we have to also keep in mind some of the drawbacks of technology as we work to embrace technology. And one of them that comes to mind is the digital divide in terms of some places not having access to the internet, which is very important. So I'd like to hear from you, Barry and Dion, just if you think technology is a permanent change and the challenges and successes you see in terms of education. And we can have a whole conversation on the different levels of education, because what is going to work for younger children not work for older adults, and younger children might have less opportunity to be able to adapt to a classroom of technology. But for the purposes of this program, let us talk about adult training and education, because I think that is where we can see opportunities to benefit. So do you think technology is a permanent change in education and training? And what are your thoughts on the successes and the challenges that this presents?
Jenny Wilbers?
Yeah,
I was asking
Barry,
Dion.
go ahead.
All right. At the Open Campus, for example, most of our BSc and master's programs and doctoral programs are done online. So we actually started the online process as it relates to higher education. Our short professional courses, however, were done face-to-face. Before COVID, we were trying to experiment whether we could have done it online, utilizing Zoom platform. As soon as COVID came, we had to move the face-to-face courses to actually do it fully online. But what we saw happen in that situation, we saw a wider cross-section of Dominicans doing our programs. So quite often, many people from Roseau and environments would have done our programs. Once we were able to put all the short courses online, you had people from a wider cross-section. So people from Kalinago territory, Casimir, Granby, all over Dominica actually did the programs, and it was because of the technology. People were able to access the programs on their phones through Zoom and actually follow the classes. So technology has actually broadened access to higher education. That's one thing technology has done. Also, technology has also ensured that women with children able to access higher education. People who lived in the rural areas, instead of coming to roads where they could follow through technology, through the Zoom platform. Also, studying and doing different things on the online technology has also made it research. Technology has made it easier. For example, back then we used to go in a library, fill with books. Right now, you get you access all the information online, and the information with journals and everything is a lot more current. And if you were to utilize books in a library, also the overall cost of doing having higher education technology bring down the cost of higher education in terms of facilitation, in terms of getting books for libraries and all these different things. So technology has brought down the cost and widened the access of higher education for people in Dominica.
Yeah, Dion.
Yes. On the question of technology being a shift, whether it's temporary, permanent, or needed, and with the question on the advent of COVID virus, uh, I will talk of some of the challenges and some of the learning that came from that. And so some of the challenges I'll say straight off the bat is that both faculty and students are exhausted and morally distressed. I can confess that this COVID virus has really had an impact on my colleagues, including myself, and the students as well. I mean, persons are languishing. And this is so because people have experienced the vicissitudes of life, i.e., the misfortunes by losing their job, by losing a family member, and so their life has changed dramatically. And one of the things that trauma does is that it decreases one's ability to heal, and in fact, sometimes it reignites old wounds. And so, COVID virus has really negatively, in some way, affected teaching and learning. But nonetheless, it also brings about an opportunity, and that is the opportunity for students to learn online. There is a model which is called Maze-IMED model. Maze-IMED model. And what it does, it creates an environment that makes online learning very, very inclusive. One of the first thing the model talks about is the whole idea of being careful not to talk about equality, equality, equality. I heard some of my colleagues spoke of equality. Well, the model now is saying that equality doesn't cut it. What is equality? Equality is if I give Dr. Simone Mathieu 2 mangoes, I have to give Lambi 2 mangoes, and I have to give Mr. William 2 mangoes. That's equality. But what if one of the persons I've mentioned has a special need, has a disability, and giving them that 2 mangoes doesn't satisfy that special need? And so the ethos here is to give that student with the special need the access and the ability to be able to compete equally with the others, which means I may have to give that one student 3 mangoes while I give the other 2 mangoes. And so that is not equality, that is equity that creates an equal opportunity. And so what that would mean, in other words, is if everybody else can take the test in 1 hour and a child have special need, then perhaps we ought to give that child an hour and a half. It doesn't give them an unfair advantage. It actually makes the table level. That's number one. The other thing I believe that COVID virus and online teaching has done is it has required both instructors and students to communicate. In fact, right now, the university systems are asking us to communicate not just via email and cell phone, but to be texting the students, constantly reminding them. Yes, and so that's one of the
Really? Oh my,
really,
that's a lot.
yes, and they're checking to see how many texts that you have used. I mean, this is really serious, right? And that's the advent of COVID. They're saying that we have to communicate in different methods to the students. Another thing is that they are asking that we reach out to the student, i.e., Don't just say good morning class, how are you today? You have to reach out to each student and say, how are you, Dr. Matthew? You feeling okay today? How is your family doing? Right?
That's awesome.
And they're saying we are doing that because of the things aforementioned, how COVID has made people very stressed, and we have to reach out to our students to see how they're doing. And what they're telling us now is we have to have empathy. That is, if you have an assignment that is due on a particular date, and a student comes and tell you, I lost my mom, or my auntie was diagnosed with COVID, some laws do not want you to ask the student, well, how is your aunt doing? Why? Just leave that alone and give the student what they're asking you for. And this has put a lot of pressure on teachers, but the reality is perhaps the students are not lying. And so one of the final points I would like to make about the online, of course, Dr. Matthew, I know you're very familiar with that, but I mean, there are different versions of online. So we can have a full online where you post the assignments and the student complete it, or you could have a hybrid where half is online, half is face-to-face, or you could have what is called remote learning, which of course is different because remote learning would mean that we are not in the classroom, but it's not online, neither is it hybrid. It means we have to meet at a specific time and we can do the work online, right? And so all these are all the areas to look at. The last thing I would say about this online learning and some of the new learning that has come is in this day and age, you have to be very careful. Careful meaning that you have to include everybody and make everybody feel comfortable. What that means in practical terms, you have to be careful how you call people. For example, it's no longer politically correct to say good morning, ladies and gentlemen, because you might have to say good morning, ladies, gentlemen, and others, because everybody is not a lady or a gentleman in this world. Be careful how you call people by their name. Somebody's name might be Jamila, but that Jamila is preferred being called Hercules. You have to call Jamila Hercules, or else you can be in trouble. You have to call the student by their preferred name. You have to refer to the students by their preferred sexual orientation. So even if you can see it's a male and he tell you she's a she, you need to figure that out. And this is something that can be very technical and when you're not seeing the person, but I am saying this because these are the realities that this online learning has brought to the forefront, and it's a whole new area. I think it brings a lot of flexibility to learning, a lot of opportunities, but nonetheless, it do have its challenges, as I mentioned.
Yeah, some really valuable contributions, Dion. Thank you so much for highlighting those important contributions. And you know, the reason that we're having this conversation is because there is so much opportunity now to receive training and education that can advance our careers, that can potentially put us in a better position to earn a better job. So that is why we're having this conversation tonight. But I'm just very concerned about people who think that the online learning is not for them, the receiving training programs is not for them. What can we say to convince people that the direction that education and training are moving towards is online? And what are some simple ways that they can embrace online learning? Because like Herman mentioned, if you can navigate your cell phone, you are okay with technology. I think many times we hear the word technology and we clamor up because we think this is going to be difficult, this is going to be a challenge. I'm not an online learner. I would prefer to learn face to face, and that is okay. It is absolutely okay if your preference is to learn face to face. But think of the worldwide opportunities. You could be sitting in Dominica and take a course from somewhere, any place in the world, from Africa, if you're interested in, you know, what Blessings mentioned before, interested in your culture. interested in where you came from and how you can integrate that into your life, you can take a class from the UK, you can take a class from Canada. So I think we have to get over that fear of that big word technology, and we have to think for ourselves that if we can navigate a smartphone, if we have been able to teach ourselves how to use WhatsApp, if we have been able to teach ourselves how to navigate Facebook, most of us at this point have been on a Zoom call. So all that is technology. So I do not want us to clamor up when we hear the word technology, but I want us to see it as an opportunity to embrace a new learning experience that can open up opportunities for us, that can put us in a better position to earn an income, to earn a living, to advance our life in a positive way. So I want us in our last few minutes to have that conversation about the fear of technology. And something else we're also seeing, and that has been my personal experience, and I'll speak from my personal experience, is that as an online learning professor, I see so many less men in the classroom than I see women. My classes are usually 95% women. Where are the men? So I want us to have that conversation. Why is there a fear? Where are the men? And for everyone who's joining us on Facebook, I want to thank you again. And my question to you as you make your contribution on Facebook is, what has been your experience? What has been your experience with technology in your workplace, technology with your kids when they were going to school online? What has been your experience? And is it something that you would like to continue, or you're at the point where you just can't wait for all this COVID stuff to be over so you can return to a regular working environment and your kids can return to a regular school schedule? So let's have this conversation, gentleman and other. I will follow Dion's lead and say gentlemen and others. So what are your thoughts? Why is there such a fear that people have in terms of embracing training online, education online, that can lead them to greater opportunities, to greater economic opportunities, financial independence, and just earning a better living?
Well, with my experience, um, not having technology in the lower school, these have not prepared the students for tertiary education or even university level education, because you can come from the secondary education, go to UE, but they have not prepared the students at best with the technology in the lower school. Complacency in students, if they are not prepared for technology, that's a problem. Usually your parents at home and they go to work, and then you are at home with your device and you are learning on your device. But you also WhatsApp. Bad things are always easily done than good. And students are not mature enough, from what I can see, to actually cope with the level of education to do it online. So what we are doing in with academics in next school year is try to have, to have on-site learning along with online learning so that they can transit into using technology fully, because it has advantages, but there are also disadvantages when students are not fully prepared. And like we said, some students don't have the technology, the availability of internet as well. They don't have the devices because of their um, their family, their economical stature. They don't have the monies to buy all those devices that we can boast of, have those phones and tablets, iPads, etc. So some of them need to come to the classroom. I have experience with top students that feel it's better to learn in person. And the other thing that is very important in teaching, because I teach maths, a lot of people hate maths. But they don't have to hate it. It's a lovely subject. It's part of my blood. But you need to share your passion with that person, and to just have your passion shared, to let that person feel that, hey, somebody loves maths. You understand? To share it in the classroom, I know that is an advantage. And some students actually drive or ride on the passion of their teachers. And you cannot feel that passion sometimes when you do online learning or distance learning. Not saying that you cannot have that video out, but I can understand some students like that. But because of our culture, again, the culture that we had, it is still having a strong hold on our students. And as a result of that, we are having struggles to help them to understand how important it is for you to record your classroom and still have it available to you, and that you can actually learn from these recorded classrooms. Or if in case you could not make it to the class for some reason, whether if you sick or you had some death in your family, at least you can miss the class, but you will not miss the content. Understand? And that is an advantage for online learning. But I can understand it on both sides. But there are more pros with online learning than the cons that some people have made out of it.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Well, yes. First of all, you ask where are the men, and I can tell you that the men are working, and that's why they're not in the classroom. That's
The
number
women
one.
are working too and going to school.
No, because
Next
you asked where are
argument.
the
Next
men.
argument.
No, you said where are the men. So, but seriously, uh, one of the things I would say about online learning to remove fear or some nervousness, some anxiety about online learning is that the instructor can play a part in having the students feel comfortable. And one of the ways of doing that, of course, is to communicate with that student, to let them know what are your expectations, and so they know what they have to do, to keep giving them reminders, and let them understand that it's possible, that it is not something where you're there to make them fail, but you're actually there to help them through the course. So you try to make them trust you. That's number one. But the other thing I would say, a lot of students, and I've seen it with particularly the adult students, what is often referred to as non-traditional student, uh, they believe because they don't have to go in a classroom, then they can continue working, just like the men and the women are working. And then they leave the assignment for last minute, and then come to find out that the assignment really asks something that is very detailed oriented, that they had to really read 3 chapters, which is like something like 90 pages. And the assignment is asking you to write 2 paragraphs, and they're like, oh my God, because they are not prepared. And so what ought to happen is that students have to be, one, self-discipline. Because the thing about online learning is you don't have someone over your back in the classroom telling you what to do. You are an adult. Yes, you're a student, but you are the captain of your ship. And so you decide when you study, how you prepare. That's number one. The other thing is time management. One has to realize that if a course is a 3 credit course or a 5 level credit course, there are certain prescribed time that one should invest in terms of study for that course. And you cannot fool yourself. In fact, you cannot fool anybody. Anytime you're fooling yourself. And so what it means, if you're not doing the work, you can expect to get the results from what you put in. And so be honest with yourself. Say, I'm taking this course. I know I have a job, but I'm going to put this time to do my work, right? And so one has to be organized, one has to have time management, and one has to have self-discipline when taking an online course. Outside of that, I can totally vouch for online teaching or for online learning rather, because it gives a lot of flexibility, right? It gives you a lot of autonomy where you can do it at your own will and time. And so I think with the advent of technology, it would open up the doors, opportunities for persons who may not have the time to go in a classroom to look forward of getting a degree or getting some sort of certification by going online.
Absolutely. Barry? You're muted.
The first question as it relates to the men, if we have to look at the statistics at Open Campus, for example, we have 90% of the participants are women, just about 10% are men. If we are to look at our short courses, 75% are women, just about 25% are men. What we have tried to do is try to have courses that are that men would want to take part in. So what we have done, we have offered coaching programs in sports psychology, sports coaching essentials 1 and 2. And that has actually helped in terms of having the men come in and do those courses. We also have programs in building and construction management, and also quantity surveying, which are traditionally courses that men do. But still, we still find a lot of women actually doing those courses. So we're trying our best to see that men can come in and take part in some of our programs. In terms of online learning has worked out well for adult learners in Dominica, I can see from my own experience, because of the sheer flexibility it provides, and the mere fact you can actually stay in your job while you actually work. Many people don't have the resources to actually leave a job and go to a face-to-face campus. Also, it has also for young children, young people, as soon as you leave high school, to actually start a degree program, or even start from fourth form, start doing some of our short courses. That's one of the benefits technology has actually brought about in terms of providing more access to higher education. What I can say is that technology is here to stay. We simply have to ensure and make sure that our students or the people taking part in our programs, they understand the technology and they appreciate the technology. The very first time I did my master's online, that was by far one of the best experiences I had. The only thing I could not do actually was touch my tutor, but it was very much like a face-to-face class. In fact, my online course, I enjoyed it more than my face-to-face class, which I did at St. Augustine. In terms of the flexibility and the total autonomy it provided, and also to the patience that the facilitators had, in terms of the delivery of assignments and the total understanding, I think that is one of the whole things that made the experience so very good. Also too, when I did my master's, just the way they went through the whole way of actually doing a research paper, assisting you in writing a research paper from start to end. The online platform actually helped me in that. What I can say again is that it's just a matter of having the students understand the online platform and reducing the anxieties with online learning. Because quite often people come with that sort of stereotype that online learning is a lot more difficult than face-to-face. It's a matter of educating the people, the student, and reassuring them that they can do it and provide training in terms of how do you research, how do you do your assignments, how you respond to posts, and all these different things. Once the students acclimatize themselves to online learning, it becomes very straightforward for them.
Yes, and the other thing we have to keep in mind as well is just because you're online, it doesn't mean you're isolated. So as a matter of fact, what you can do is if you have an opportunity to take an online class, an online training program that will advance your education, provide you with a job opportunity, you can collaborate with the other students. So if you think that you need a buddy to be able to stay motivated, the same way you find a buddy to go to the gym with you, and sometimes we don't go, so that's a whole other conversation, but the same way that you can find a buddy to do other things, go shopping with you, why not get a learning buddy so that you can keep each other motivated? Because I just see the future of learning and training as online, and I would hate to see that our people are not benefiting because they are simply afraid of the online learning experience. They're afraid scared that they may not understand the information. They will not have someone to immediately answer the questions, because as you know, if you're sitting in a classroom, you raise your hand and the teacher immediately responds to your questions. So we have to give our learners the confidence of letting them know that you are not alone in the online learning environment. Your teacher is readily available. I mean, Dion, how quickly do you respond to a message? I mean, I respond to messages within minutes of students sending them, because I'm at home working and teaching, but my computer is on, my classroom is open, and as soon as the student sends a message, then you respond immediately. So that gives the students the confidence that you are not alone. Don't be afraid of the technology. Embrace the technology, because that is what is going to lead to your career advancement and other opportunities for you. So as we get ready to wind down the program, I want to thank everyone who joined us this evening. Herman, Barry, Dion, Lambie on the console. Thank you so much. Sherwin, who kept us connected. And I just want to hear your final thoughts as we get ready to wind down the program. Herman.
Well, I'm all for online learning. At academics, sure, you come, we will be doing pre-recorded videos and online live lectures, as well as on-site. We'll be providing all your materials for you. We'll be doing online testing, because the exam that you'll be doing still have an online component. So at least we'll be preparing you for that, and also preparing you for higher level education. So online learning is not a ghost, or it's not something running after you. It is a futuristic thing. The world is into technology. And since the world is into technology, we have to move forward with the world. And that is what we try to do at academics. So we will be coming to Roseau. We will have a classroom space in Roseau with technology in it, the smart boards and everything, and we'll also have it in Portsmouth, try to target all of Dominica, have we'll expand our reach, and we will provide students for Dr. Barry Casimir, so you'll have,
I was thinking the
to
same
continue.
thing. I was thinking
Because
the same thing.
you would actually, I think, when you complete the CAPE program, I think you can be enrolled in the UE program with at least 3 CAPE courses. So, so we will provide students for you, and
Yes.
obviously, we could help students, further their education in various fields, especially sports studies. Before the program, we spoke about few sports. Try to get our athletes, to know more about their bodies, also to get into sports management, because a sports career is very short, and if we can actually get that, in Dominica, that would be something new. And my dear colleague, Dr. Barry, is a sports enthusiast, so maybe he could help continue that dream I have, just to get sports uplifted in Dominica.
Yes, I'm happy we made the connection between the two of you. So, Dr. Barry, your final thoughts?
Technology is here to stay, and technology will continue to evolve. What we must do is try to have an appreciation for technology. Technology is going to be part of learning and education. We must ensure that our students gain that appreciation for technology, and it starts from very young. Once we get our children, make them part of the make technology part of the whole process of learning, I see no problems when they get into the primary education, secondary education, and into higher education. I've seen technology has provided flexibility for learning and teaching, and technology has put people in terms of the overall cost of doing programs. That reduced the cost of doing bachelor's degree and master's degree and even doctoral degrees. It has also widened the access to higher education. Back then, most people had to go to a brick and mortar campus to do their degrees. A degree would cost in the region, and that is in the 90s, so about 70 to 80,000 dollars, which includes board and lodge. If you go in the US, it's even more. But technology has cut down the cost of higher education. You can do, for example, a degree at UE for just about $40,000, which is a fraction of the cost if you were to go overseas. So the overall cost of learning has gone down because of technology. What we must do, as I said, is to just appreciate the value and importance of technology in learning.
Absolutely. And think of the number of kids who have their iPads in their hands all day. So
Exactly.
this is our opportunity to ensure the next generation is not going to be afraid of technology. So a lot of us might frown on the fact that our kids have too much iPad time, but we can see the benefits of ensuring that they have an opportunity to not be afraid of technology. Dr. Dion, again, thank you for doing double duty of 2 programs back to back right here on the big station. Your final thoughts as we wind on the program?
Yes, Dr. Matthew, you took that last point straight from my mouth when you talk about technology with children, because, God is the one who gives us wisdom. And I'm saying that because I see it in my eyes, I had a 1-year-old and the man 1-year-old, and he taking the control for the TV and he cannot speak, at the time. And he telling the control, because he knows when he talk to the control, it will do something to the TV, right? You'd be surprised to see how he plays on your cell phone, and he touched something, and when music, he has achieved something, right? And so children get very accustomed with technology, and I think older people have a little anxiety about it. They're uncomfortable, but I think program of this magnitude is one. Hopefully, the listeners can feel very comfortable and feel better about the idea of online learning. But I just want to take the opportunity and tell Dr. Barry Casimir, it was very nice meeting you, of course, and for the good work that you are doing over at the University of the West Indies. And of course, my good friend here, Mr. Williams. Yes, that's the first time I'm meeting you. I'm very impressed with the work that you are doing. Congratulations on keeping up the work. And of course, my old captain, Lambi. I don't know how you do it to come there in the night, because I had 2 nights and I think it really beat me up. So thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing, right? And so, Dr. Simone, thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts, right?
Yes, and thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. And I want to make sure we take a final comment from Facebook. We have Shari Bryant, and she says, "Re-collaboration. This one must be scared that her friend may be smarter than her. I guess she's smarter than them. They need to break their fear barrier, be brave, and you get there is one to help the other in the work group. Very educational program. Thank you, lady, gentlemen, and other." So I think from now on, Dion, we're going to be using that and other phrase. So thank you again, Lambi. Thank you to my guests for being here. Thank you to Mr. G and Q95 for providing the platform. And to all of our listeners on the big station Q95, I want to thank you for being here. And, I want to leave us with the thought that I hope we can see how we're bringing the pieces together, because in my mind, we have all that it takes. We have the experts, we have the technology, we have the work ethic. So in my mind, it's this puzzle that we call economic opportunity. And every time that we come here, we will try to think of a way to provide practical information. And I hope we were able to keep that promise today, and you were able to take away some information that you will be able to apply to your life. And I want to thank you for joining us on Facebook Live via Wise QFM, as well as Push Past 10. Don't forget to follow Push Past 10 and Q95 on Facebook for all what is coming up next in terms of our wonderful promotion. So we will be back in another 2 weeks. We'll be tapping into the expertise of our senior members of our society. We already have Mrs. Ophelia Marie lined up as a guest. We have Mr. Alvin Thomas lined up as a guest, and we're going to talk about the importance of tapping into the senior members of our society as a resource. What can they offer us? What can they teach us? What can we take away from their experiences so we can create economic opportunity, we can gain financial independence, and we can advance our life in some way despite not having those all important policies. So this is a do-it-yourself kind of program, right? This is a do-it-yourself kind of program where we take the information and we apply it to our life. And I hope that you had an opportunity to do just so. So again, I want to thank everyone for being here. Again, my name is Simone Mathieu, And it has been my absolute pleasure to be here with you for another episode of Roots Connections on Q. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. So you have yourself a wonderful evening. And gentlemen, again, thank you for your service to country.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, Lambi.
Thank you, Lambi. Thanks, guys.